Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lee Coogan. I am a member of the Eagle Creek Board of Governors and chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. I want to thank you all for coming today. Purpose of today's meeting, as you've seen from the numerous emails that we've been sending out, is to provide the Eagle Creek members with an update on the long-term strategic planning that Collier County has for growth and development. And we're very, very fortunate today to have with us, excuse me, as a presenter, Michael Bosi, who is the director of the Office of Planning and Develop for the Growth Management Division. If I may, I'm going to apologize right now for the raspy sound of my voice. I think it sounds sexy. My wife says I sound like a frog. So what does she know? Yeah. Oh, please. Oh, please. For those of you who have been at Eagle Creek for over 10 years, you are well aware of the amount of development that has taken place outside of our gates during that time. We've seen a great increase in the number of residential, commercial, and dining outlets that have been built during that time. It certainly has given us a lot of choices from a Walmart to a Carrabba's to a coffee at Starbucks. It's also seen, excuse me, an increase in the amount of traffic outside of our gates. A few years ago, as more plans for development began to emerge from Collier County, the Strategic Planning Committee agreed that Eagle Creek needs to more closely monitor these activities. We need to monitor the activities, and we need to devote some time in evaluating what the possible impact might be on our community, and when appropriate, provide our input, whether it would be through the public hearing process or with individual meetings with the county. But we felt it was important that our voice be heard. To that end, the Strategic Planning Committee created a government relations subcommittee. That subcommittee, over the last 2 years, has met on numerous occasions with representatives of Collier County. Michael, on numerous occasions, and with folks in the transportation planning area and in the water planning area. And I have to say that they could not have been more generous with their time, more welcoming, and in sharing information on any topic that we cared to discuss. And if they didn't have the answer, they directed us to someone who could provide us with that information. So it's been a very, very nice relationship, albeit in its youth. And I have to say that one interesting factoid that came out is that of all the residential communities in Collier County, Eagle Creek is the only community that has initiated such an outreach with Collier County, which I think says something about the members here and the board. So that's we're very appreciative of that. I think that it's safe to say that the catalyst for today's gathering are two events. The first was the development of the Wawa property, which we all knew was coming. I think when the land was cleared, we were all surprised at the size of the clearing and what the footprint was going to be. And the second thing was that the Wawa was originally, we were originally told that it would be a convenience store, gas station, and a tire kingdom. Those would be the two outlets that would be there. Eventually, that has now evolved to the convenience store, gas station, tire kingdom, and 7 retail stores being anchored by a dollar store. So that's what's going to go in that footprint. Okay. The second thing is a highly publicized activity in the county to provide more affordable housing. I think Michael will touch on some of this. We have discussed it in a meeting in his office and actually just discussed it a few minutes ago, what that means and some of the challenges that the county is facing. Unfortunately, affordable housing quickly became low-income housing in a lot of people's minds. And we all know about the llama farm that happens to sit across the street on Price Street from where the Wawa is going in. And there were visions of low-income housing going on that space. Again, that is not the case. And we felt that the best way to alleviate any misinformation was to bring the source to you. So we have asked Michael to come here today, make a presentation, and he is willing to answer any and all questions and stay as long as you like. Don did point out the maps. Mike bought 100 copies. We will make more copies available through either the county website, or he'll send it to us and we'll give you a site where you can see it. So to get started, I would like to ask James Radsky, who has been a part of the Strategic Planning Committee for the last 3 years and a member of the Government Relations Subcommittee since its outset, to please introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Lee. I'm not sure I need you. I think he was already introduced. This is the man right here. But I would like to add one thing that I found really particularly helpful as we've carried on these conversations with the county for the last couple of years. And that is that this gentleman doesn't sit over in Collier County alone. He has a whole team of people around him. And I can't overemphasize that, because as we got into specific discussions of the Price Street road, or the flyover, or the Wawa station, or the C4 canal, Henderson Creek, and so forth, the hurricane, there are people working around him and in tandem with him as part of his broader team, who can offer all kinds of information to us. So this is a wealth of information for us. It's a service provided to us by Collier County. As a guise of introduction, I will just pass the mic over to Mike Bosi, who has done this before. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Once again, my name is Mike Bosi. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director for Collier County. I've been with the county for 16 years, the Planning and Zoning Director for the last 6 years. As James said, I work with Growth Management Division. The Growth Management Division is a combination of transportation planning, stormwater planning, and overall the development side of the shop with environmental planning and a lot of other multiple disciplines. About 372 individual professionals make up that make up the ability to make up the division. I have a wealth of information available to me. Doesn't mean I always have that information available in my head. Any questions that I won't be able to answer today, I hope I'll be able to get you to the right people, to the right sources to be able to get you to the answers. I'm going to start off with a little, I don't want to say bad news, but startling news. Right now, the county, as we currently exist, has about 372,000 permanent population. It's not our seasonal residents, but 372,000 people. Within the next 40 to 50 years, that population is expected to double. The build-out numbers that we project for the county, 800,000 to about 1 million people. That's the range that we're preparing for, that we have to plan for to be able to accommodate. The good news is that we have the framework of comprehensive planning in place to be able to accommodate those growth development within concepts of sustainability. What's on the map here is your future land use element. It's your future land use map. One of the things that you're going to notice, and it's a little bit different, I believe, on the screen over there, but this greenish area that you see here, that basically, that's two-thirds. Two-thirds of the county is in state or federally protected lands. Two-thirds of this county will never be developed. What we're trying to do is figure out what's the best way to accommodate the populations that we expect within 1/3 of our population. And just to orient everyone to where we are at, and what I'm showing is the very bottom red, the very bottom red square, that is the intersection of US 41 and 951, just to give you an orientation of where we're at. Where we expect those populations to arrive, for the most part, is area east of 951. The area in white to the top of the map that surrounds a Immokalee urbanized area, which is that the yellow blob, is the rural land stewardship area. It's the area where we expect 200 to 250,000 people eventually to live. They're going to live within the concept of compact urban development. The first proposal, the first development that we have related to that compact urban development is the town of Ave Maria. And I'm not sure how many people have been out to the town of Ave Maria, but comparatively what it was 12 years ago to what it is today, you start to see the visions of what we're trying to accommodate. What we're trying to do is develop not only individual residents for people to live in, but we're trying to develop a unique economy within the eastern portion of the county. Arthrex, most people are pretty familiar with that company. It's a locally grown medical manufacturing facility. Right now, 300,000 square feet of medical manufacturing warehousing and production facility is housed out at Immokalee. At the time, before they moved forward with that location, there was a lot of contemplation between that company as to whether they were going to be able to stay in Collier, if there was going to be a spot to be able to accommodate that expansion, or whether they were going to have to, whether it be Lee County or a different location. So the development of Ave Maria and the availability of open developable lands for research development, for industrial, for job creation is part of the strategy and has provided an asset to the county. The next in line for that rural land stewardship area is a new program being a new town that's being introduced by Collier Enterprises with 11,000 dwelling units and almost 2 million square feet of non-residential land use to be able to also accommodate some of those future populations. And the way that it works is about 5 acres of environmentally sensitive land has to be set aside for 1 acre of urban development. So that exchange is how we allow for the impacts, but provide for the protection of environmentally sensitive properties for the habitats to our listed species that are in there. More particular to Eagle Creek in terms of what the growth and development means is related to this future land use map. And this next slide that I have brings that southernmost arrow that I was pointing to, the intersection of 951 and 41. And what you see is that those crossed lines that sit south of US 41. And what that is the coastal high hazard area. Eagle Creek sits within a coastal high hazard area. That coastal high hazard designation provides protection to this community. And why I say that is that the way that our future land use map works, this map that I'm showing you, it allocates densities, what's appropriate within certain areas of the county. It differs in the different areas where you're at. When you're in one of the red squares where the activity centers are, we're allowed the most density that's provided for. But when you get to the coastal high hazard area where we know that they're prone to inundation from category 1 hurricanes, we want to limit that density. So anything that sits within this area with these lines just below 41, the limitation of density is 3 units per acre. Now I heard when James and Lee had asked about the llama farm. I said, well, one of the things about the llama farm that provides protection to Eagle Creek is it's just a high hazard area. It's an area where we would not want to have a high density project such as affordable housing. We do not want it. We wouldn't want to put that many people, those many units in harm's way. So that designation from the future land use element is part of the protections I feel that you really have in relationship to where you sit in the overall scheme of things. And going back one slide again, if you look at it, I mean, just below that crossed orange area, and it's tough to see, but you can see it's all environmentally sensitive land. There's no development that's going to encroach to the south of you for the most part. And I have some slides towards the end where we'll show some of the improvements that is just, we were talking about the Wawa, the Tire Kingdom, and the dollar store to show you. But in overall perspective, the location where you guys sit within the future land use element provides Eagle Creek, I think, a unique environment in which the encroachment, over, no, I don't want to say overcrowding, but the amount of development that's going to be able to influence the surrounding community, I think is limited in that respect. I think that it should be somewhat comforting to the location and to the future as we move out. I move forward 2 slides, and what this slide's showing you, you can't read it, I'll read it for you. From 2005 to 2017, the county issued 32,402 certificates of occupancy for either single-family houses or multifamily houses. So for the last 12 years, we've issued over 32,000 new units available. Right now, we have a population, the average population is about 2.39, almost 2.5 persons per unit. So with that 32,000, you're talking potentially about 85,000 additional people in the last 17 years have moved here. But we also have to account for our seasonal population. And our seasonal population, the way we account for it for our infrastructure planning, one of the things that I also do within the county is coordinate the capital improvement element, the new roads, the new schools, the public utilities, libraries, parks, government buildings, those facilities. And the new population dictates the expansion of those infrastructures. The overall mix of dwelling units, you can see it's about 18,700 for single family, 13,600 for multifamily. What we've seen in the past 2 years, though, that's beginning to switch. We're starting to see much more multifamily come on board and being proposed for the area than single family. Now, I know some people may have some connotations upon what that means, but what it means for the overall housing diversity is a positive thing. One of the things that we struggle with, as you know, is being able to find housing for the working professionals within the county. And the more that we can provide for a range of housing units, I think the better it is from an overall economic mix, a better social economic mix in terms of range of housing for a number of the necessary workers that make up our community. This next map, I think everyone has that map, and if not, we will make a stride. And that's just to provide you with something to take home. These are the number of projects in the last 2 or 3 years that have happened along this 41 corridor. As a side note, I'm going to talk about it towards the end of my presentation. One of the things that I've been working with over the past year is working on the U.S. 41 corridor study from Airport Road and 41 all the way down to 9. Now, talking to the community, trying to engage what type of developments they would really like to see, what type of developments that they would like to see promoted, to try to find what's the right mix and what the community preferences in terms of what we would go and speak to the market, to the development community about. Here's what the community has expressed they would like to see. And I'll get into a little bit more of what that community, but I've been pretty active within that 41 corridor. Just a week and a half ago I'm not sure if anyone attended Commissioner Fiala's town hall meeting. We had at the South Regional Library about a week and a half ago. It was a pretty rambunctious meeting when we got towards the end and we started talking about the manatee site, which I'll touch at the end. I'm sure everyone's probably a little curious about that. But I've been spending a lot of time in this corridor, and it's amazing how the development community has reacted to. Let me go back one slide. And what I didn't highlight is all those blue dots are where those COs have been issued, and one of the largest growth corridors that we've seen. It's that 950, or it's the Mockley Road at 951 east, and the 41 corridor heading east. It's the pocket of growth. What do all those COs mean? Those COs mean to site locators for restaurants, site locators for retail stores, site locators for the various commercial ventures that eventually will find a place within this community. All those COs mean disposable income. That's why you're going to see, and that's why portions of my presentation will talk about all the new activities, all the new projects that are coming along that 41, is because we're finally starting to see the development of the housing stock that's necessary. The way that it was before, forever, the commercial attractors were based upon a 6-lane transportation corridor. So it was all auto oriented. And a lot of the individual community found that that wasn't providing the type of end users that they were interested in participating. I think you're starting to see that change. And you're starting to see that change because you're seeing more houses grow from the ground, and those houses have the disposable income. And then therefore, those commercial ventures are willing to justify that the growth potential, not only what has been, but what's coming, is going to allow for a supportable marketplace. And these next couple of slides are going to take a number of different clicks. So the parallel, just keep up. Here's the commercial projects in 2017. Overall, and this is a full county-wide. In 2017, we had 119 commercial projects, 16 in the Immokalee District 5, basically 48 in Districts 2 and 3, and then 55 in Districts 1 and 4. And in comparison, 2016, you had 76 projects. So you had almost 43 additional projects that have been initiated in 2017. And as the map indicates, that East Naples area is gaining the majority of these projects. And then we go to subdivision plats. In 2017, there was 3,297 lots that were created. In District 5, it was almost 13,000. In District 3, it was 855. In District 2, 118. District 2 is North Naples, and that's almost essentially built out. District 1, 1,028. And in 2016, there was actually 4,182 lots that were created. So in the past 2 years, there's been over 7,000 individual lots that have been created to accommodate the future populations and the populations that we expect. Excuse me?
What district are we?
District 1? Yes. This is exciting. This is a project that's coming up to I-75 and 951. Has anyone heard anything about the FDOT improvements for that intersection? Well, currently, to go to the East Coast, if you're heading south, you got to go against traffic. Not the most efficient way to gain access to the interstate. And conversely, if you're going to head west and you're heading north, you got to go against traffic again. Once again, that creates conflict points. Conflict points slows down traffic. Not the most ideal situation. FDOT realized that. And what they've done, and you won't be able to see it, but what they've been able to do is create two on-ramps to be able to accommodate those two east-west movements to eliminate those traffic conflicts. And also, what's coming with this intersection improvement over Davis Boulevard is going where the orange lines, the red lines are. Those are flyover. That's a flyover. So 951 will be grade separated over the Davis Boulevard area to be able to promote a continuous flow at that intersection. And if you're heading north and you do want to head west, you're going to be able to stay in the right-hand lane, take that on-ramp, and it's going to shoot you over to the west. And conversely, you're going to be able to do that same thing if you're heading south and you wanted to head to the east. So what that's going to essentially do is no matter which way you're heading on the interstate, you're never going to have to go against traffic. It's going to be a continuous flow. Therefore, it's going to be a much more efficient design. The timing for this construction is scheduled to start in 2021, which is only 3 years away, and we know how fast that can go. This slide really dictates that ugly Lowe's that was constructed, the beams are up, but nothing else has ever gone about it. And I think everyone is familiar with what an eyesore that is at the entryway of the area. Benderson, the developer, and it didn't show up. They've come in and they've proposed a shell to actively engage that site development plan to re-engage the activity to have an alternative replacement for what that Lowe's is. Unfortunately, as you've all probably have monitored, big box retailers are struggling within the brick and mortar section. So the hardware stores have been pretty well sheltered from that disruptive technology or disruptive activity that the internet has provided for. But we haven't had and Benderson hasn't had a Lowe's or a Home Depot approach them. So they're trying alternative ways to figure out what's the best use for that individual commercial space. And I think anything is going to be better than that shell of girders that have been out there for 7 to 8 years with no activity. And we're just going to go over some segments of 950 or the 41 corridor to show you what's coming on board. And as you'll see, the left-hand side is 951, and then obviously it's 41 heading east. One of the things, and I have some further slides on this, but Fiddlers Creek, which is right across the street, as everyone knows, they're in for a PUD amendment. And currently right now, the majority of the commercial square footage for Fiddlers Creek sits on the 951 location. They're proposing to take the majority of that commercial activity that was on 951 that would have a potential disruption or influence upon the Eagle Creek and your traffic within your immediate area. And they are looking to displace that from the 951 location over to that orange indicated area on US 41. Habitat's adding 119 units to their existing development down off of 941. You also have a growth management plan and a PUD that's probably going to be hit in the summertime for an additional 60,000 square feet of business retail, also potential assisted living facility at that location. New church sites is being developed over on 41 as well as 191 potential residential units. And then one of the things that was one of the targets of our US 41 corridor study was self-storage facilities. So some of the commissioners feel that we have maybe been oversaturated with the self-storage facilities, and it's one of the activities that we're trying to figure out the best way to deal with those type of. Yes, ma'am.
The 191 residential units, what does it represent? Multifamily? Is it low-income housing? What is it?
It's multifamily. There's no affordable housing density bonus being sought at all for that location. This is another, Aldi's is locating almost near the corner of 951 and 41. And just a little slide, this talks about the proliferation of storage facilities. And one of the things, it's a double-edged sword. Storage facilities are respond to market demand. We have a lot of stuff. We have no basements. And because of that, I think you see a high demand for storage facilities. And what you'll see is there are an adequate supply of storage facilities, but there's still more that are being requested, and there's still more that the market seems to be demanding. Here's your current existing and your proposed storage facilities. And then these next couple of slides, images are just going to show you an example of some of the designs of these new facilities. The one thing I will say about the storage facilities is they're rather benign in their use. They are required to be architect.
No, you're okay there. This antenna's being buried. So just pull that up a bit. Maybe put it in your other pocket and stand this way. Should work. believe it or not.
The self-storage facilities they're rather benign in their nature, in the sense that they are architecturally embellished, meaning they look like an office building. They do not generate a lot of traffic. Most people, I mean, they're very low intensity in that regards. They don't demand a tremendous from your infrastructure capacity. The only thing that they aren't, they're not daily neighborhood serving. They serve a neighborhood purpose for storage for individual residents in their goods and services, but they are a relatively benign land use. But some of our individual commissioner members, I think, are saturated with the concept. There's 58 built, 10 approved that have not been built. This is East Trail and Floridian Avenue. And as you can see, the architectural of these facilities, they most certainly do not look like the old roll-up ones. They're much different than what our design requirements are. Anything that's facing your primary road system, you can't have roll-up doors. It has to look like an office building, and they have to, the self-storage providers aren't enthralled with our design criteria, but they do protect the visual aspect of the community. And overall, I think it's a win for everyone. This is another Davison in Radio Road. This one's at Collier South. This is around, I believe, south of the I-75-41 intersection. Rattlesnake and Collier, another facility. East Trail and Linwood Way. And I-75 and Collier Boulevard. And this was one of the potential uses for that storage or for that shell building that we were talking about earlier. The next area we're going to talk about, Collier Boulevard to Floridian Avenue, and I think this is probably where you guys will be very interested in some of the proposals. Staybridge Hotel, as you know, is going, or hopefully you know, is being developed just at that just north of the intersection of 951 and 41. New sit-down restaurant is going to be developed next to Hobby Lobby, but we can't reveal the name yet. It's kind of the disclosure, but a new facility is coming. Of course, I think everyone is familiar with the location of the new Wawa and the Dollar Tree and the Tire Kingdom. This is the Vincentian PUD. It's approved for 200 multifamily with future commercial. They are in for an SDP, but they've stopped and started. So what they're exactly proposing, I don't think the market has defined for them because they haven't defined it for us. But that's that is an area where we would expect a mixed-use development, commercial and residential. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and I've got the site plan for that I have as one of my last slides, so you'll be able to see how the overall arrangement is. And you're right at Price Street, right outside I think it's a secondary entrance for you guys. You guys are getting a roundabout, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And that's a self-storage facility. If anyone had a guess, that's what it is. It's another self-storage facility. And this is the Rattlesnake Hammock to Airport area. Once another Wawa that's being developed. And this is the multifamily in front of Isle of Collier. It's another 340 units that's going to be proposed. O'Reilly Auto Parts is going on in East Trail at that location. The Walmart's they're redoing the Walmart at just south of the government center. Another hotel is being developed along the East Trail, just north of the intersection of Shadowlawn and 41. Another self-storage facility. And this area here that that triangle showed is the mini triangle. It's in the Bayshore Redevelopment Area, and I'm going to have some slides that will focus upon this particular area. And this is an area that's been deemed a CRA. It's a community redevelopment area. Deemed the conditions have been deemed suffering from blight and underinvestment. So that we have got some aggressive strategies to try to promote redevelopment of the area. For the most part, the orange part is areas it's designated, it's leftover zoning, commercial, with residential being concentrated in the middle. There's some exciting projects that are coming on. This is just outside the mini triangle. It's the old, I believe it was Albertsons, Publix. It was Publix that is across from the government center. There's a BW3s that's hardly utilized there. Kite Development owns that, and they're coming in. They're proposing the main shopping center. They want to replace the main shopping center with multifamily apartments, condo apartments, leave the out parcels, and it's something that we support to be able to bring those type of units, those type of diversity within our dwelling units within close proximity to where a lot of job creation, a lot of job needs can be filled. And they're also developing, it's almost complete, well, probably about a month away, month and a half away, another Starbucks location is going to be developed over there. And that's the mini triangle that I was talking about. One of the things that most affected this area, they had a racetrack that was proposed at a certain location. The community went out and was extremely against that location. Since then, they have found an alternative. They moved it down to the corner of Shadowlawn and US 41, a little less away from some of the residential neighborhoods. And it's been much better received, not only from the residents who lived at the old location, but the businesses within the local area. And we think it's going to be a visual improvement to some of the older dilapidated structures that sit in that location. And this is the catalyst project that the Bayshore CRA has been working towards, and it's been established since 2000, so it's almost 18 years in the making. And what that shows you, the front white building is a 123 condominium hotel with a little bit of retail that was developed as part of the development standards that currently exist. They have cleared that entire site, and they're actively right now going to seek their building permit to develop that condo hotel. And then just to the south of it is a condo, apartment, and additional commercial and office square footage. It is currently going to the Planning Commission this Thursday, and it's expected to go to the Board of County Commissioners the 12th of May for the final decision. But if you've been to that area as you're driving up 41 before you hit the bridge over to go to Naples, you can envision what it looks like today. And you can envision also, I think, when both of these projects come to fruition, this type of investment within this area, the anticipation is that it will only create further demand for additional redevelopment of that individual area, and that's the long-term goal of that individual area. And here's another street view, and you could, if you think back to your memories of what that looks like today, if you would envision that being the replacement, you could see, or you could understand the impact that that would have in terms of attracting new investment to that individual area. It's there, the height is proposed at 168 feet. And the question was 168 feet higher than most buildings? It's not higher than most buildings along the coast. And what we've seen, downtown Naples is 2 or 3 stories. So 168 feet is much higher than a 2 or 3 story building. You're on the south side of US 41, looking across 41. On the back side would be Davis Boulevard. Where Davis and 41 T, you'd be on the south side of 41 looking, you'd be looking north and east at this location.
Are you going to be able to make a right-hand turn then from, are you going to be able to come south on?
Oh, that's way too granular. That type of detail I wouldn't be able to provide. I had to look at the site development plan. Ma'am. The question was, how many stories would you be able to fit in a 168-foot height limitation building? 15, 16 at the very most. Yeah. No, as I said, it's on par with the coastal development. It's much higher than anything that we've seen in the interior. About a year and a half ago, Arthrec at Creekside, which is Goodlet Frank and Immokalee Road, they were approved for 148 feet, 144 feet. That was the first encroachment of height within the urban area. As I was talking about, 370, 450,000 people are going to be moving here in the next 40 to 50 years. We have to start to better utilize some of our urban spaces, and that means vertical construction.
One question about the traffic. If there's that many more residential units and retail establishments where people pulling in and out of their cars, which usually public transportation there, and you already have to wait sometimes 10 minutes to get to that light up there, whatever it is, 10th Street or something. Is there going to be some direction on traffic here that's going to make it doable?
Well, any one of the projects that would go through the site development plan process has to satisfy the concurrency management system. So any project that comes on, if you're proposing 210 residential units, 152 hotel suites, 700 or 74,000 square foot of retail and office space, all of those are associated with the number of trips. Those trips are compared against the number of trips that are allocated within our concurrency management system. And if there's enough capacity on the system, therefore that SDP can be approved. One of the things people, I think, underappreciate is the road system and what our road system is designed to accommodate in the levels of service. The road systems are designed to accommodate the 200 most pressing hour. Not the first most pressing hour. We don't build the church for Easter Sunday. It's inefficient. We don't build our road systems for March. We don't. We couldn't afford the cost of our transportation system. People say we've got a problem with traffic. Between February and March, it's just horrible. There's 10 other months. And it's an evaluation. It's a balancing act. Because there's not a problem in July. There's not too much of a problem in November. December, it starts getting a little dicier. January, so it's an evaluation from a fiscal standpoint, can we afford to build for our highest hour? So when we evaluate projects at the 200th hour, not the 100th hour. So it does allow for a little bit more. And one of the things is the mixed nature of this project is something that we understand that helps trips in a positive way, because when we put residential units, when we put economic opportunities, jobs within the same structure or on the same parcel, that person doesn't have to leave, doesn't have to go out onto the exterior transportation system to gain work. So the closer that we can bring work opportunities to where we live, the better we have from an overall transportation traffic standpoint. And this just talks about the TRIO project. Here's our architectural rendering for what that project is eventually going to look like. And that's that condo hotel. And that one's at 123 feet, I believe what it was.
Where are they putting the cars?
Those are, the parking for these facilities are both underneath the buildings. And this is just the spec sheet for that, the hotel. 84 hotel rooms, 12 residential units, 405-seat restaurant, and 1,000 square feet of retail. There was, one second. Yes, ma'am.
The Kmart, the old Kmart that we had in our public parking, public shopping center, that's been empty for a number of years. I haven't heard you mention anything about
You mean over in Lely?
No.
Or, yeah. I don't believe there's plans right now for an alternative towards that right now. There's just nothing there. It hasn't moved. What this slide here is to talk about, and I mentioned it a couple of times, was the U.S. 41 corridor study. We went out, we had meetings October, November, January, February was our wrap-up meeting. Had a great turnout, engaging conversation. What I learned the most about the population in the 41 corridor, they want more sit-down restaurants. You guys like to eat. You like, and I appreciate that, but you want, what we heard overwhelming was, we have enough fast food restaurants. And that's what I talked about. I talked about one of the natural gravities of the commercial end users on 41 has always been that auto-oriented end user. We're starting to get away from that, but I think the community is a little anxious and would like to see that accelerate a little bit. So one of the things we heard the most was the desire to promote more sit-down restaurants. Another aspect, limitation of what government does is government doesn't pick the individual end users of the restaurant. We give the range of uses that a commercial venture could choose to pursue. And then that investment dollar has to identify what they think is most appropriate for the individual return. Yes.
For the mini triangle that you were talking about, can you orient us with, just tell us where the Olive Garden is?
Oh, it's right there. The Olive Garden is just across the street from that that corner. So Olive Garden, right before you, it's just southeast of the bridge. Before you get over the bridge, that takes you over to where 10 City.
So the triangle is west of the Olive Garden.
It's south, directly across the street.
South.
Yes.
These people know that they're going to be right on the path, the airport.
The question was, did that location know about the path to the airport? One of the requirements and one of the things that the last bit was coordination with the Naples Airport Authority. They've received an FAA determination that 168 feet is a no hazard determination. We just received a final letter from the airport authority. They have signed off on the project. Each one of the individuals who occupies those units will have to acknowledge on their that they are in close to the path of an airport. So those are the type of things that will be required as they develop and as they move forward, as prospective buyers would come into it. Ma'am.
So will the condos and the rental properties in that tower there, the Davis Corner, be for teachers, nurses, policemen?
The question was the condos, the condos, apartments that would be within that tower, are they restricted or are they designated for an individual population, whether it be school teachers, whether, it's for whatever the market. It's first come, first served. Whoever, there's no designation for that to be an affordable project, that's going to be a workforce project, that's going to be anything other than just a market rate, a condo opportunity. Ma'am.
When you expect this increase in population, what kind of individuals are you expecting? Families or we have a lot of retired people that come down here.
Sure.
What ages are you expecting and what jobs are they going to be looking for?
Well, unfortunately, here's one of the sobering facts of Collier County, 67% of the jobs have a base salary, jobs that are created in this market, 68%, 67% of them pay $33,000 or less. It's a service-based economy. The need for housing for that population currently is not being served by the private marketplace. The units that are coming out within the urbanized area aren't finding a pricing point that meshes with the jobs that are created within this market. That's why the affordable housing issue has been such a prominent issue this Board of County Commissioners has. And what are the populations? The board has expressed a strong desire to attract more young professionals, millennials. The preferences of the young millennials are not to live in a single family house that's separated by a wall. They want more rich urban environments. They want mixed use. They want multifamily. They want something closer where they're not auto reliant. So it's a tough task because the county doesn't produce housing. We approve projects. We approve the allowance for projects. Then the private development is the one that puts the capital in front, and they are the ones who target who they're looking for.
But what you build doesn't that attract a certain population? Like what is built there, you attract.
The unit type, the size and the characteristics of that unit dictates market price. Market price dictates who that's attracted to and who could accommodate that individual unit. Sir.
And you maybe focus on Eagle Creek and surrounding area. I don't want to discuss here.
Oh, the question was, could we just focus upon Eagle Creek? And I think we're going to try to. And I just wanted to accommodate the individual questions that we may have. We're going to talk about it. One of the things we also found, and we'll get back to questions and answer. One of the things we also found in the year that we were out talking to the community about what they would like to see, the marketplace has responded. I think I've made this point a number of times. The marketplace is responding. A number of new developments are being proposed now and are moving forward. We're starting to see some sit-down restaurants. We're starting to see a little bit more diversity within the commercial offerings. What we're going to try to do with the 41 study is try to promote what the community has said they want to the business community, to the development community, so there's a clear articulation, but also try to find a set of incentives that maybe can make the development of sit-down restaurants more attractive to be able to accommodate those type of end users, the end uses that the population that the citizens have expressed. And just some of the end conclusions that we found from the visual survey or the visual preference surveys that we conducted at the individual meetings, that open-ended questions. One, that community identity. A lot of people felt that East Naples maybe was wrongfully persona from a past, and that our future isn't tied to that past. So we need to rebrand the community, brand area to let individuals know that there's more to do down here. There's a lot to offer. There's a lot of assets. And that if you gave East Naples a second look, you might be surprised about what you see and what's coming out of the ground. Also, new and different businesses were desired. Hotel, restaurants, grocery option, wholesale clubs, restaurants. And as you've seen, two hotels in the past year have been initiated. So some of the activities that the community has said that they would like to see more of is starting to come about. One of the biggest issues we heard of, especially on that 41 corridor, was transportation. It's set up a 6-lane highway. It moves cars adequately well. It doesn't move bicyclists. It doesn't move pedestrians in the most efficient manner. It does if you're just walking on one side, but it's that cross-pollination across 41 that is more difficult. The problem that complicates it is it's a state highway. It's a federal highway. The state dictates what you can and can't do. So we as a county have to be more active with Florida Department of Transportation to encourage a more pedestrian, multimodal type of environment. This gets a little bit more to the parochial view that was expressed, meaning let's focus upon what's immediately happened within the Eagle Creek area. This is the proposed master plan for Fiddlers Creek. And as you see on the left-hand side of the screen, the little red, the red dot is the remaining commercial. Currently right now, where that red dot is and the orange and blue, that's all red right now because it's allocated currently for the majority of the commercial. They're taking the majority of that commercial off of 951 and moving it to those two locations on 41. And the southernmost red dot, the dot that's the closest to the right-hand side of the screen, that is proposed right now to be anchored by a Publix. So more goods and services in closer proximity to where individuals. Ma'am.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but are there going to be more places, including Fiddlers Creek, like hours where you can just go through the back gate on the golf cart and, stay off of the highway and just, do grocery shopping, Walgreens, whatever, so that all those cars aren't on the highway just to run a couple errands?
Well, in the Fiddlers Creek, most certainly, and that has always been one of the things that we try. If the residential community is amiable to it, having connections to where those commercial locations are is something we want. Because I mean, the more we're able to allow people to satisfy those needs of their household without having to get onto the larger transportation system, we all benefit from that. So trying to identify those as opportunities, as means of moving forward is something we're always looking to encourage. And as I said, this is going to the Planning Commission April 19th, and then we've scheduled the Board of County Commissioners for the 24th of May. So this is an activity that's coming up quickly. This was the growth management plan change for that 60,000 square feet of additional commercial and office retail, as well as potential ALF, another portion of the East Trail, bringing some commercial activity to that location. This is just a tentative site plan. Doesn't tell you much other than the outlines of where the development envelope is. Their preserve is basically buffering their commercial to the residential that sits to the east and to the south. And this is your Wawa, Dollar Tree, and Tire Kingdom. The existing bank, obviously, is at the corner there of 41 and Price Street. And then immediately to the west is where your Wawa location is going to be. And then immediately to that left is where Tire Kingdom is. And then the southernmost development is where you're anchored by a Dollar Tree and it has some out parcels. And where I was talking about, and I believe this is Price Street. Price Street's here, and that's 41. So is everyone got that? 41 in Price Street. You know where the existing bank is? Just west of Lowe's.
Which one, the Fifth Third? Which one?
There's the bank is not being proposed to move. The bank is going to stay at that corner of Price Street and 41. And to the west of that is where Wawa is going to be. To the west of that is where Tire Kingdom is going to be. And then to the south is where the Dollar Tree strip, that little strip center is. And this location here, I'll go over there to show.
Your lights not
That's where your roundabout's going to be. That's where your roundabout's going to be. Yes, yes. And I'm not sure, some people are a little hesitant about roundabouts. I think once you find that they're installed, they're much more efficient in terms of how they handle traffic.
How many gas pumps?
The question was, how many gas pumps are going to be at Wawa? Let's look. Here's some architectural renderings that Wawa has supplied for the facility. Their front elevation, I think it's a typical Wawa facility. And if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be 16 fueling stations, 8 pumps so 16 total fueling stations. And if you see at the top is how the overall side view of the facility is going to look. This is the architectural renderings that were put for Tire Kingdom. Not that divergent from what our Mediterranean architectural requirements provide for, but nothing extraordinarily unique as well. And here is the third of that facility, and that's your Dollar Tree. This would be looking, the way that it's oriented, you're looking to the south and to the east. And this would be south as well to the east. And this would be this is where I think would be the most impactful to Eagle Creek, because your secondary access road is just to the bottom, the bottom right-hand screen is where that roundabout's going to be. So that's what you would be seeing from that location. There is no diagram of the roundabout, sorry. And here, someone asked for the front, the front architectural screening of, and that's the Dollar Tree there. Ma'am.
The main entrance Price Street. Is Price Street the only way to get it out?
No. There's an access at 41. There's an access at Price Street as well.
Can we go back to what we're gonna see from Price Street? Okay, well, that looks beautiful, and I realize that that's an artist rendering to show the county. What Eagle Creek people wanna know is, where are the trash containers gonna be? Because they're gonna be in the back, and that's what we're gonna be looking at.
Trash containers are required by our architectural code to be behind solid concrete walls. They will be located somewhere in the bag, and I'm sure they don't, you're right, the artist doesn't prominently show where the trash containers are.
Those behind Lowe's and all back there, we see them all.
Ma'am.
Will we hear anything when the trash is empty? And what time of the day are they planning on?
The hours of operations, the restrictions, I'm not sure on that. Would you hear anything if you're in the parking lot? Yes. If you're sitting in this clubhouse, I would say no. Ma'am.
My biggest concern with the building across the street is what it's going to do to the water, because they're going to empty into that creek over there, and that goes down here. And when we have a lot of rain, it backs up into our lake and gets that far from my house.
So the concern was what's going to be the impact from a stormwater management perspective. And what I would say is it's going to improve your stormwater management, because right now that current parcel, it's undeveloped, that water just flows. The requirements that we have is for a 24-hour period, they have to detain the water that was received on that process, that's received on the parcel, allow for water quality, allow for percolation to happen before it discharges to the larger system. So you're going to have an engineered approach towards water management, towards right now, it's just sheet flow.
But I didn't see any water retention area on your things. There might be tile, but that tile is going to empty into
The
creek.
land development code requires that each one of the site development plans that are approved, that they provide for either engineered water management, or there are a series of detention ponds, swells, things like that. So if you don't see swells, if you don't see a water management lake, that it's engineered, that they have to, because they have to accommodate it, or they can't. Our stormwater management department wouldn't sign off on the SDP. So it'll be an improvement.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I want to follow up on what my concern is when I looked at during the hurricane, because obviously we were all concerned about what was happening. When I looked at the
storm surge conditions and what the elevations and the impact would be on Eagle Creek prior to the redevelopment of 951, it actually created Eagle Creek into a bathtub or into a basin because there's not enough outlets. And when I look at that, and by the way, I did your job for 39 years, so I'm a lot older than you. When I look at that development, I look at the elevation, I understand that they're probably going to do rooftop, containment units. They're going to do all those kind of things from a stormwater management. But I still look at the big storm event. And you can look at what happens in low, even under just a normal storm. Water flows right through that. All I can think about is that as the development continues to increase, without any kind of an outlet, any kind of stormwater management outlet that's going to allow water to continue to flow through, he's just going to back up. And it's going to be held by Eagle Creek. It's going to impact on Eagle Creek. So what I'd love to see is actually what's the overall master stormwater management plan, as well as overall master transportation plans. I think that's important. I think you're doing a fabulous job. Everything else you're doing is development, individual development. I got to do some time about the intensification and maybe rehabilitation, but I think those things are the most important part for the people here.
And the question comment was really about the basin as a whole. And how is it, what is our approach and how are we handling the overall water management component for the generalized area that surrounds Eagle Creek? And one of the things that started our conversation with Eagle Creek was James and Lee reaching out and asking that very question. And then they sat down and we had our stormwater management folks talk about not only what we're doing on a parcel by parcel basis or basic, but how we're dealing with it from a holistic approach, how we're dealing with the basin as a whole, and what strategy are we accommodating to handle and deal with those larger water management issues. And of course, there is the issue that we all know of sea level rise and saltwater intrusion. Those are issues and concepts that we're grappling with on a regular basis in terms of what are the most appropriate actions that we need to take today to be able to start addressing some of these issues that we know on a long term we're going to have to deal with, sort of like the population. We have to start evaluating strategies. And the way that I always talk about our population projections and what we're looking at, it's kind of like that hurricane. We're at 2018, and we say we're probably going to have about 800,000 to 1 million people in the future. How are we going to accommodate that population? We've got policies, we've got goals, objectives within our growth management plan. We have land development regulations that deal with some of the site specifics. But as those out years become a little bit closer, as some of those unknowns become a little bit known, we take the necessary action and take the steps. Because when that hurricane is halfway in the Atlantic, and the projected line shows it kind of by Florida, you pay attention to it. You take a little bit of preparation, but you're not sure. But when it's 3 days out and you're within that cone of influence, you know that immediate action is necessary. And you know the conditions that you're going to have to deal with. And you take reactions to those. It's kind of how we deal with our long-range planning. We have to build it upon a base of assumptions. And as those out years become a little bit closer, we define the problems better. And those definitions help provide clearer answers to how we can accommodate the growth and development. And one of the things that we always say, unfortunately, this place has high demand from a population standpoint. People want to live here. People want to be here, whether they want to be a permanent resident or a part-time resident. And there's land use rights that are associated with property. We have to balance those land use rights, but we also have to balance the commitment to environmental stewardship. We also have to balance the commitment to sustainability. And those questions are things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as a planning department. And those questions are the things that our planning commission, I don't know if anyone has ever paid attention and watched a planning commission, but I've never seen such a detailed and demanding group as the Collier County Planning Commission in terms of how they go about and ask the specific details of individual projects. And then ultimately it comes down to the Board of County Commissioners. And the Board of County Commissioners has to weigh not only all those aspects that I was talking about, but then they've got social. There's other aspects that are brought to the table, and they try to make the best decisions. And from that, I think that the overall message from a planning standpoint that I would give is we are aware of the issues that affect individual projects of individual communities. We are trying to provide the most sustainable solutions that balance all the competing interests, but we realize that we're never going to be able to 100% satisfy that demand for a place that time has somewhat taken us from. And I say that in a sense that we're no longer a 28,000 person fishing community. We're not. We're 375,000 people. We're an economy that's emerging with activities that only become more detailed and become more diverse. And because of that, the areas that we have to attend to have become more complicated and more difficult. I'm sorry, man.
I want to go back to the llama farm. What zone is the llama farm? Is it residential? Is it, I mean, there are zones in.
I believe that's agriculturally zoned. It's a mix of ag and some residential zoning over there.
Okay, how easy is it to change that zone?
So the question is, how easy was it to change the area surrounding the llama farm?
How easy is it to change it to another zone?
How easy is it to change a piece of land from one zone to the other? What it dictates that was that first map that I put on, that future land use map, it is designated residential. For that to change to something other than residential, they would need to amend the growth management plan. That growth management plan amendment process takes 4 hearings before the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. It's extremely difficult. In between a transmittal hearing with the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, that growth management plan has to be sent to the state. The state has to review it, ensure that there's no critical areas of state concern that would be triggered by the proposal. They provide it back down to the localities, and the localities go through that public hearing process again. It's not impossible, but it just takes a long time and it is difficult.
And you call the neighbors and tell them that somebody wants to change it? I mean, are they?
We don't call the neighbors. The way that it works is if you've got a project such as, a good example would be Fiddlers Creek. If you lived within 500 feet of Fiddlers Creek, you would have received a notice that they were amending the plan unit development. And here's the specific of what they're trying to do. They want to add commercial from 951 and move it over to 41. You'd provided a letter. That letter would tell you the date of the Planning Commission. And from that date of the Planning Commission, you'd be able to find out when it was going to go to the Board of County Commissioners and what that process was. So there's a notification process that we have built in. Any change to any of the land use activities, whether it be at the growth management plan level or at the zoning level, it requires a neighborhood information meeting. The applicant is required to hold a meeting, talk with the neighbors. This is before it even gets to the public hearings. They have to have a meeting, talk with the neighbors, find out where the pain points are, and that's designed to be able to address those before it gets to the Board of County Commissioners or the Planning Commission. But then it goes to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission reviews it, makes some recommendations, and then ultimately it will go to the Board of County Commissioners. Ma'am.
You've talked about the increase in population, and you've thrown out these numbers about how many people are going to be here in the next 20-some odd years. You haven't once mentioned anything about schools.
Schools are part of our concurrency management system. Every new project has to evaluate how many new school children are going to be produced. The school district has to sign off on their school concurrency application, meaning that there's capacity within the school system for the additional load. But here's one of the things, and it gets back to who's going to be filling up the places of which you guys were talking about, those units. You know how many new schools we built in the last 10 years? 0. Do you know how many new schools we built in the last 20 years? 2. You know when the next year of the school construction is 2023. We do not build a lot of schools because we don't have a lot of pressure on school growth. We have we have a very low birth rate within this county. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that it's a reflection of the population. The demographics of our population skews older.
You're talking about multifamily buildings, I mean, stories. And are you thinking that's going to be all senior citizens?
Oh, no, we're hoping there's going to be children, and we have a system in place that requires that the school district says that there's capacity to handle the demand that's associated within the individual development. And so we coordinate with that on a regular basis.
Okay, we're all familiar with Hammock Bay, the two buildings that are down in 951 high rises.
Yeah.
Is that the limit of height for multi-family units? And could we see buildings of that height in some of this growth area that you're talking about?
There's a third building is approved that's never been constructed.
But I'm talking about some of these other areas down 41. Are we going to have a lot of that type of multi-unit building, multi-family buildings?
On 41?
She's talking about what's already been approved for multi-residential units. She's asking, are they going to be the height around the height that they have in Hammock Bay?
The Hammock Bay the development regulation for Hammock Bay contained only to Hammock Bay. There's all the rest of 951 there has nowhere near height like that.
I don't know if Hammock Bay is taller than that. If that's if 168 feet is the limit.
No, it's the limit for that individual development area. I can't speculate in terms of other. Sir.
Is it possible that we can let him finish his presentation and then ask questions? Good idea.
No, we're about.
Never get through.
No, we're about done. I mean,
well, it'd be nice to cover the flyover and run with that and orderly ask questions. He may answer some of the questions.
I don't have anything on the flyover other than it's still outside of our 10-year transportation plan. That flyover is at least 15 years away. It is on the books as part of our long-range transportation plan, but it is not in the 5 or the 10-year capital improvement element. What that means is it is still far out into the future.
You expect more traffic to enter the Wawa area from 41 or from Price Street? Is there a projection as to how you feel that traffic will flow into that area?
The question was, would you expect for the Wawa location, would you have more traffic from Price Street or from the 41? And it's from the 41 because it's a Price Street. You got to turn down Price Street, go back, go around the back side of it, and go up into the middle to get there. That's discouraging. That's not an efficient way to get there. The majority of the traffic is going to be off of that 41 intersection.
With the same question, will they be able, on 41 going north, will they be able to go into Wawa?
That I'll have to find out. I don't know if I would be suspicious of them being able.
Just coming down 41, they'll be able to go into Wawa.
That would be my estimation based upon the.
And if somebody goes in there and wants to go back north, they're going to have to go on Price Street to the light and turn left and go up Wawa. So all that traffic.
Yes.
I heard what you said earlier about government approving projects, but not responsible for identifying good restaurants. But, a couple of years ago, I was excited to hear that there was going to be a new restaurant row across the street for the public. And I thought, well, now we'll have some nice restaurants so that we don't have to go to Marco or go down to Fifth to go to a classic place. And I come back the following year. The only fast food restaurants that weren't there were Burger King and McDonald's. So I'm just curious. I know it's not your fault or your responsibility, but is there any thought as to why some kind of a Capital Grill or some kind of an upscale dining place not get out there?
Housing units, disposable income, as I mentioned. your COs are starting to emerge towards where those restaurants find a sustainable future. Before, the problem with the 41 corridor is the majority of our development where commercial locations are at the intersections of major collector roads. The problem with the 41 corridor, the disadvantage with the 41 corridor is to the south of 41, there's very little residential development, and then you're into the Gulf. So there's no pressure for patronage in large scale that comes from the south of the 41 corridor. So that's why the majority of the developments that have come up to date have always been that auto-oriented type. As more households come on board, as the Isles, as Treviso Bay, as those fill up, those profiles of those households only will lead to the Capitol grills, those type of developments eventually moving forward in the market.
New place next to Hobby Lobby, I know you can't say the name, but at least is it an upgrade?
I believe it's a sit-down restaurant. Oh, the question was comment upon a drink of water outside of my area of expertise, but I do know that Dr. George Yomez, who runs our public utilities department, has always indicated that Collier County has received state and national awards for the quality and the taste of the water. And in terms of capacity to service the existing residents and the future residents, plans are in place to be able to make sure that there's no disruption and that the water quality level of service that you have from that component is not going to be impacted in terms of, from in a negative perspective in any way.
When will the intersection of Triangle and 41 be improved? Right now, part of that is one lane, and getting out of there, and you're talking about a new restaurant, it's impossible.
That's the question was Triangle and 41, when were those improvements are going to be, and those are corresponding with the approvals of these site development plans and improvements with those individual intersections. So they correspond.
But when they did nothing when Hobby Lobby went in there. And there's all that traffic. You cannot get out of Freedom Plaza just to get on Triangle to get back on 41. Try it. Talk about new. At least the third lane.
And on what I'm not a transportation engineer, so that specific detail, I can connect you with individuals who can get you that information in terms of when those facilities are coming on board. But I would say that they correspond with the site development plans and permits are going to be out of the ground. Ma'am.
Is there a plan to continue what they're doing on 950, is it 941, 951, across the street from us in the center lane? They're putting the beautiful trees and the flowers. Is that continuing towards us and heading towards Marco?
One of the things that your Commissioner Fiala, is most adamant about is the landscape and the feel of the community. She has lobbied hard to the Board of County Commissioners for them to reinvest and redesignate revenue allocation for the landscape. That was one of the components, I think, that probably took to the back seat, that they just weren't putting money into new landscaping and upgrade, but she's secured a commitment to move forward. So I think you will see those continue to those beautification projects, because it does change the feel and the look and the overall perception of the area in a very positive way. Sir.
Somebody who bought property here more than 20 years ago and was told that the parcel next to us was going to be the future home of upscale shops at Eagle Creek, that define Staples and Lowe's. Now I look at the fact that we've got a semi-functional front door and a tough to get in and out back door. I'm a little bit reminded of that story of how you kill a frog. You put it in cold water and gradually turn the heat up before the frog realizes it's been cooked. Well, we haven't been totally cooked in the Eagle Creek frog, but I want you to appreciate that the heat's pretty high. If there's any way in the world, in future planning, you cannot turn it up a little more and just kill us, I appreciate it. I also observed that I'm hard pressed to think of another gated community in Naples that has been equally perturbated as Eagle Creek has been. We keep that in mind, please.
Understood. Sir.
Can I ask, if you could put that roundabout plot back up, where are the access points to that roundabout? Are they directly across from the bank and the exit from the shops?
Dude, it's a current configuration. It comes almost to a Y.
Yeah.
You just put a circle around
So
there.
there are 3 access points?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's where that current intersection is. Okay. It's placing a circle and then distributing it off of that circle point. And I find that the roundabouts are, once they become familiar, they're very efficient. Yes.
I have 2 questions. The first one, you said that we're not going to have any low-income housing on the farm because it's a high.
Coastal High has, yes.
There will be no occupancy as in homes there, is that what you're saying?
No, the limitation is 3 units per acre.
Okay.
That doesn't align with.
Okay. The other one is, this is off the subject, but have you heard of anything going on Collier Boulevard, the Naples Outlet Center? Somebody bought it, painted it all up, and it's still deserted. Do you know of any plans?
Not that we've been broached with, and that just highlights a sea change that's happening within communities and the amount of supportable square footage from a retail perspective. The advent of internet shopping in goods and services has disrupted brick and mortar retail in ways that we're still trying to understand what is supportable and what can be maintained within an individual market. And unfortunately, we've had no conversation as to transition that or changing that. Ma'am.
You come northbound from Collier to make the left turn into the front. Eagle Creek is a left-hand turn. They have now built a lane going southbound that completely blocks the view. If there's an SUV or a truck or van or anything in that lane, it's going to be a terrible accident there. I'm asking the question, how does such a thing happen? And what could possibly be done to prevent a terrible tragedy before it happens? How on earth could such a thing have happened?
But every one of our transportation improvements are reviewed by our transportation engineering department. And you're saying that that intersection, that 951 intersection, is problematic. Have you reached out to the transportation department at all? I mean, okay. All right, and I can bring that up. I most certainly can carry that message forward with you, of your concern, to have them come out and look at it and see what improvements or what. Okay, all right. Well.
During the day, not 10 o'clock or at night.
Oh, okay. No, I understand. Well, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon is what you're talking about. Yes. It's 90 minutes in. I have a couple more questions. Yes.
On a roundabout.
Yes.
With the size of Price Street and the room that they have there for a roundabout, I don't know how it can accommodate a 15 that comes in and out that goes back in.
Eminent domain. Make sure that there's adequate enough space for that roundabout. It's for the fire department to sign off on that transportation plan. It's going to be able to have to accommodate vehicles. I mean, I know you have in your mind, you're like, you just don't see how it could happen, but they'll have to. Well, I mean, if they have to take some land from the existing parcels, that's what happens. That's how the transportation process works. All right, yes.
Can you tell us what you know about the height and type of building that's going in right next to Dunkin' Donuts, and if they're going to replant any of the trees that they stripped?
The Dunkin' Donuts just to the east of height restriction is probably 50 feet. I think that PUD had. that you could maybe get 5 stories, but 50 feet is the limitation of the height. I don't, in terms of the overall, will they have to replace? Every one of those out parcels has to provide the minimum requirement for landscape buffers. So they will have to replace.
Well, they cut down trees without having permission to do so, was my understanding.
Oh,
I don't know if they're going to replant. And what's going in there? Is it going to be? Yeah, it's commercial. Right?
It's C1 through C5. You've got the wide. That's an activity center. So you have the wide range of commercial 1, which is your neighborhood serving, all the way to commercial 5, which is your auto repair shops. Could be.
So you don't know what's going in there?
No, I don't know what's going on there. There's lots of projects that go on in the county that until, they're developing, I wouldn't know about them. Yes.
That huge piece of property down on 41, down by St. Andrews around there with all the trees are down. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, all constructed.
Yeah.
On the left
Just
side.
in the last month.
We talked about it earlier.
You said it was mixed use on.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to identify in my mind where the parcel of land.
Down past St. Andrews on the left-hand side.
They're clearing trees there. Right
Fiddlers
now.
Creek.
I'm not sure. I don't want to give you false information, so I don't know off the top of my head. Sir.
Something about wholesale club on here. I lived on Mark, I'd have to go 35 miles to get to a Costco.
Uh-huh.
We've got to go 18. How do you get somebody like a Costco maybe to take over the Kmart over there?
Oh, that'd be great if I knew the answer to that. We tried. The Sam's Club was actively being pursued by Kite Realty across from the government center, which is now going to be multifamily apartments. They pulled back. They pulled back. There is.
Pulled back because there was a moratorium for a year up there, though?
No, there's no moratorium. They pulled back before what I said. There is a tremendous amount of disruption that is going on within supportable square footage within our local markets. And unless they're 100% sure that there's market viability for that product, the Sam's Clubs, the Walmarts, they're not building new facilities right now. Now, it may shake out a little bit more that we find an equilibrium, and more than likely that's what happened. But I empathize with you. I could understand how a wholesale club, whether it be Costco, Sam's Club, or something in this general vicinity, is absolutely a necessity. And I think that everyone in the Eagle Creek development would probably find a reason to engage with. But how we get the market to respond, we can only let them know of the lack of those facilities, and then hopefully they identify that they see that it's willing to pursue to justify the capital expenditure to move forward with it. But with that, I appreciate the opportunity to come down and answer some of your questions.
About a 10-minute sing-along, but we're going over our 90 minutes, so I want to thank everybody for coming. And Michael, I want to thank you. Any questions that you would like to have us pass back or get answers, please see me or James, and we'll get them, the Government Relations Committee, working on that. I know that I did actually have a specific conversation with Trinity Scott about the roundabout and the question about the space for the turn. And it was clear that if they needed to, they would nibble off a piece of the llama farm to make room for it. So if there are any other questions that you would need or would like to have answered, please just pass them along and we'll do the best we can for you. I want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.